Tanks are burning. A Soviet gunner's tale of his first battle on the Su-152 Beast Hunter. Hey, folks! Subscribe to our channel and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think, so share your reactions and stories. It's the summer of 1943, in a place called Belgorod, deep in the Soviet Union. The air's thick with tension, the ground's trembling from distant explosions, and a young guy named Elektron Perklonsky is about to face his first real fight. He's behind the controls of a massive Soviet self-propelled gun, the Su-152, nicknamed the Beast Hunter for its knack for taking down German tanks. Today, I'm gonna walk you through Elektron's story, a gripping tale of courage, grit, and a machine that changed the game during one of the biggest battles of World War II, the Battle of Kursk. I've beefed up this story with some extra details about the Su-152's role in that fight, tailored it for you folks in the USA, and kept it simple so you can feel the heat of the moment. Meet Elektron Perklonsky. Elektron Perklonsky was a regular guy with a name that sounds like something out of a sci-fi flick. He was just past 20 when World War II swept him into its chaos. Born into an ordinary Soviet family, he found himself in the driver's seat of one of the most fearsome machines the Red Army had, the Su-152. This beast of a vehicle earned its nickname Beast Hunter because it could knock out German tanks like the Tiger and Panther with a single shot. For Elektron, this wasn't just a machine, it was his lifeline, his shield, and his weapon in the hell of war. The Su-152 was a monster. Built on the chassis of a heavy tank called the KV-1S, it carried a 152mm gun that could punch through steel or demolish enemy bunkers. But it wasn't perfect. It was slow, clunky, and inside, it was like sitting in a smoky oven. The five-man crew driver, gunner, loader, commander, and assistant worked in cramped, sweaty conditions, choking on gunpowder fumes with every shot. Yet, this machine was a game-changer, and Elektron was right in the thick of it. The first fight, August 3rd, 1943. Let's set the scene. It's August 3rd, 1943, in the fields of Belgorod, part of the massive Battle of Kursk. This was one of the biggest tank battles in history, where the fate of entire armies hung in the balance. Elektron was part of the 1548th Heavy Self-Propelled Artillery Regiment under the 53rd Army of the Soviet Steppe Front. Their mission: smash through the Germans' heavily fortified lines, which they'd spent months building up with bunkers, trenches, and anti-tank guns. At 4 in the morning, the Soviets unleashed a massive artillery barrage. For over 4 hours, the ground shook, and the sky roared with explosions. Elektron later said it felt like the Earth itself was fighting back against the war. By 8:40, everything went quiet, a spooky, heavy silence that signaled the attack was about to begin. Then, the Soviet forces rolled out. Heavy KV tanks led the charge, followed by Su-152s like Elektron's, while Soviet bombers and Il-2 attack planes roared overhead. Elektron described the Su-152 as a mammoth, stomping forward like it was ready to crush anything in its path. But for all its power, it was slow and not exactly nimble. Elektron had to wrestle with the controls, yanking levers left and right to keep it moving across the scarred battlefield. Hell breaks loose. Tanks are burning. As soon as the Soviets charged, the Germans hit back hard. The KV tanks up front started going up in flames, one after another. Elektron heard the crackle of his headset, picking up a mix of Russian and German voices, then a desperate shout. "This is radio. Tanks are burning. Tanks are burning. Copy that." It was the radio man, reporting the chaos. Tanks was slang for the armored vehicles getting hit. In just minutes, several KV tanks were knocked out, and two Su-152s from Elektron's regiment were reduced to smoldering wrecks. That's when Elektron's crew jumped into action. Their Su-152 started firing high-explosive shells at German fortifications. Each shot rocked the vehicle, and inside, the air got thick with smoke and fumes. It was hard to breathe, and Elektron's head spun from the heat and stench. The gun could only fire 1 or 2 rounds a minute because the shells and charges were loaded separately, but each 90-pound shell was a nightmare for the enemy. The Germans turned their guns on Elektron's machine, and shells bounced off the armor. One grazed the turret, but thank God, it didn't punch through. Elektron kept maneuvering, dodging as best he could in the sluggish beast. Then, They spotted a German gun, or so they thought. It was actually a camouflage tank, maybe a Tiger or Panther. Electron's crew fired a armor-piercing round, and boom! The enemy tank froze, smoke pouring out. It was a moment of victory, but the fight was far from over. The Soviet tanks, self-propelled guns, and infantry kept pushing, and the Germans started to crack. They abandoned their positions, leaving behind supply wagons and equipment. The village they'd held was reduced to rubble. Electron later recalled looking at the ruins and thinking about how war wipes out everything human. Where people once lived, there were now just craters and charred remains. But the danger wasn't over. German Heinkel bombers swooped in, dropping bombs that shook the ground. One exploded close to Electron's Su-152, but some nearby soldiers took cover behind it and survived. The regiment chased the retreating Germans for hours, taking out another enemy tank. By evening, they stopped at a river to catch their breath. Electron stared at the water, the sunset reflecting off it, and thought about how fragile life is. The German planes came back, bombing the empty village ruins, a pointless act of desperation. The Su-152, or Beast Hunter, made its big debut at Kursk in July and August 1943, and it was a shock to the Germans. Designed in just 25 days at a factory in Chelyabinsk, Russia, it was based on the KV-1S tank and armed with a 152mm gun. Meant for blasting bunkers, it turned out to be a killer against tanks, too. Its armor-piercing shells could punch through German Tigers and Panthers from nearly a mile away, and its high-explosive rounds could wreck fortifications or even rip the turret off a tank with sheer force. At Kursk, the Germans rolled out their newest toys, Tiger tanks, Panther tanks, and Ferdin and self-propelled guns. The Su-152 was one of the few Soviet machines that could take them on. Historical records say the Soviets had around 300 to 400 Su-152s at Kursk, though some sources mention as few as 24 in the Belgorod area. Either way, they made a big impact. They blew apart enemy strongpoints and supported infantry and tank assaults, helping turn the tide in the southern part of the battle. But the Su-152 wasn't perfect. It could only fire 1 or 2 shots a minute, and its gun could only swivel 12 degrees side to side, making it tough to hit moving targets. Its mechanics, borrowed from the KV-1S, broke down a lot, and many were lost to mechanical failures rather than enemy fire. Still, it was a star at Kursk, earning its Beast Hunter nickname by taking down Germany's scariest tanks. About 670 to 700 were built before production stopped in December 1943, replaced by the IS-152. The Battle of Kursk was a turning point in World War II. Over 2 million soldiers, 6,000 tanks, and 4,000 planes clashed in a fight that changed history. The Soviet Union poured everything into building machines like the Su-152, which cost about 250,000 rubles each, millions in today's dollars. Factories in places like Chelyabinsk ran non-stop, even with shortages and the chaos of war. Germany, on the other hand, was running on fumes. They were short on steel, fuel, and manpower, and Allied bombings were hitting their factories hard. The Soviets' ability to churn out tanks and guns, even under pressure, gave them the edge. The Su-152 was proof of that, a rough, tough machine that could stand up to the best the Germans had. Why this story matters. Electron's story isn't just about a battle, it's about what it means to keep going when everything's against you. Imagine being stuck in a hot, smoky metal box, knowing one wrong move could be your last. Yet Electron and his crew pushed on for their buddies, their country, their future. The Su-152 wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of defiance, a machine that showed the world the Soviets wouldn't back down. For us today, stories like this remind us how hard one piece is. They show the grit of ordinary people who did extraordinary things. The Battle of Kursk and machines like the Su-152 helped shape the world we live in, and we owe it to guys like Electron to remember their sacrifices. This is just one story from a war full of them. If it hit home for you, or if you want to dive deeper into the machines and heroes of World War II, subscribe to our channel. We'll keep bringing you tales of courage, history, and the tech that shaped it all. Drop a comment below, tell us what you think. Share your family's war stories, or just let us know how this made you feel. Your voice matters, and together, we can keep these stories alive for the next generation.